For the love of Chicago, my name is Tom Barnes, and you're looking at the former celery capital of the world. Back in 1899, the Lakeview community was known as the celery capital of the world. That was before it was annexed to the city of Chicago. But I am standing in one of the most iconic parks in the Lakeview community. There's another one where they play baseball up the street. We'll get to that in a second. But this park right here on the lake is called Waveland Park, and it has softball fields, as you can see behind me. It also has a golf course, and that's where the golf course clubhouse is, the iconic clock tower, and of course you got some tennis courts right there, along with Chicago's famous bike path. I'm going to talk to Paula Durica about how Lakeview got its name, and is it one word or two? I don't know. Paul, what do you got to say?
Both.
Both?
It really depends it depends on the context and
Okay.
what source you're looking at. So I've seen it spelled both ways. And the thing about Lakeview is that that's a name that's been used a lot of times. Mm-hmm. So we know it as a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. It's also one of the 77 community areas.
Right.
But long before that, it was a name given to an independent township and to an actual city that incorporated in 1887.
A true fun fact on how Lakeview got its name. Another fun fact is a lot of the Chicago fire debris that was left over from the fire was used as landfill to build most of Lincoln Park, which you're looking at right now is Lincoln Park and Lakeshore Drive and the beautiful bike path that we all use and love here in Chicago. But this would have been all lake that you're looking at right now, out to the wonderful Lakeview, huh? Lakeview. But who was here when this first got settled? Paul?
People that were non-Indigenous started kind of showing up there in the 1830s through the 1850s. And by the 1850s, it's really kind of established as an agricultural community. And according to some sources, Lakeview was the celery capital of the United States. That was the bumper crop that they grew there, and it supplied Chicago and the rest of the country.
And we're talking the main thoroughfare through Lakeview. Would you say it's Clark Street?
Yeah, I mean Clark Street, and then other major streets include Ashland, and you're going like farther west all the way to like Ravenswood. Although some people claim it goes as far west as the North Branch of the river.
What other fun facts that you have about Lakeview that people who have not been there before might not be aware of, or people who haven't been there in a long time?
Well, I can say about how it got its name, how it's believed to have got its name. So I talked about the celery farms, but Lakeview also has lakefront property, and one of the first things to be built there was a hotel in 1854, which had the name of the Lakeview House. How did it get that name? Well, apparently one of its earliest guests, before they had settled on a name, was a guy by the name of Walter Newberry. If you know that name, it's because of the Newberry Library.
Right.
And he dealt in real estate in the city, and I guess he was like standing on the veranda, and the hotel was built with a beautiful view of the lake. And I guess he was just looking out and saying, "This is an amazing lake view." And the name was given to the hotel, and then by extension to the township, and ultimately the neighborhood that we know today.
So Lakeview, being one of the 77 community areas of the city, also has neighborhoods within a neighborhood. Right now, you're looking at the Northhalsted neighborhood. Formerly known as Boys Town, is the oldest officially recognized gay neighborhood in the United States. This area is known for its vibrant nightlife, the LGBTQ-owned businesses, large-scale events like the Northhalsted Market Days, Chicago Pride Parade, among many other things you'll find when you go for a walk down the Halsted corridor here is the Legacy Walk, which is an outdoor museum. It's the country's first outdoor LGBTQ plus museum located in the heart of the Northhalsted neighborhood. And you know what, when you walk up, you notice it right away by the 10 sets of 20-foot tall rainbow pylons made of decorative steel. And these pylons serve as a beacon for Chicago's LGBTQ community, with each pair of pylons anchoring a section of the exhibit. And each of these pylons has 2 bronze plaques, and there's 40 in total, making it one of the largest and detailed bronze biographical memorials in the entire world. So I thought I'd take a moment to truly enjoy the lakefront path. You're looking at it right outside of Waveland Park. It's an 18-mile path that cuts through the city on its eastern edge that goes from all the way to the south side through the north side. It is a spot where you can bike ride, walk, you can picnic, and do all the things that makes Chicagoans and Chicago so truly unique. All right, so now we're on the western edge of the Lakeview neighborhood. You're looking at Southport, also known as the Southport Corridor, and you got the old Mercury Theater and the Music Box. And if you've never been to the Music Box, what are you waiting for? This is a truly magical place. They still have an old organ in there. At Christmas time, they have a double feature where they have It's a Wonderful Life in White Christmas, and they have carolers, they have Santa Claus popping out. But one of the more distinctive features of the Southport Corridor are the businesses along the way. I mean, you have everything from bars to boutiques to pop-ups like TerraVision right here next to the Music Box. So when you're waiting in line at the Music Box Theater, you can come in and check out one of these wonderful stores. And look at this. Down that way, you have an old steeple of St. Alphonsus Church that is right near the intersection of Southport and Lincoln. I mean, truly unique spot. But now let's head east towards the lake for another different neighborhood within Lakeview. So there's a real interesting fun fact about the Lakeview neighborhood and a missile site. Paul, you got to help me explain this one.
So there was a Nike missile site at Belmont Harbor, and in the early 1970s, local indigenous communities decided to create something called the Chicago Indian Village, where they actually took over that Nike missile site for a while and were using it to kind of like push for more affordable housing in the uptown neighborhood and other areas.
So prior to 1889, Lakeview was its own little township. It was right on the shores of Lake Michigan. It was almost like a vacation area where people would get away from downtown. And there's a fun story about how Lakeview got annexed into Chicago. Paul?
So I read a publication that was celebrating the 75th anniversary of the annexation of Lakeview to Chicago. That happened in 1889. It was actually a pretty close vote. A lot of Lakeview people wanted to stay independent, but you know, there were enough to get them to join the city.
So for some time in Chicago's Lakeview neighborhood, people were Sox fans more than they were Cubs fans. Paul, why is that the case?
Back in 1906, when the Cubs and the White Sox faced off in the World Series,
The one and only time I did.
there was a group of Lakeview residents who were a Chicago White Sox fan club and traveled to see the World Series down on the south side. Because at that point, the Cubs weren't playing up in the Lakeview neighborhood. They were playing on the west side.
Oh, right.
So they don't move until the late 19-teens, because Wrigley Field was originally actually built for another baseball club, the Chicago Whales of the defunct Federal League.
So one of the wonderful things about the Lakeview community area is that there's a neighborhood within a neighborhood. We already talked about Northhalsted. Now we're talking about Wrigleyville because, of course, Wrigley Field. It has been home to the Cubs since 1916. They've been playing baseball here since 1914 when the Chicago Whales of the Federal League played here. But the Cubbies moved here in 1916 and it's been their home ever since. It's been changed to Wrigley Field in around the 20s or so. But either way, it is a historical landmark here in Chicago, a federal landmark right here at the intersection of Clark and Addison. So many of you have read The Devil in the White City, and you know from that history, or if you're a history buff in general, that the first ever Ferris wheel debuted in Chicago on the south side. Why am I telling you that when I'm talking about Lakeview? Well, there's a story with a Ferris wheel and the Boy Scouts of America. Paul, you gotta tell me and explain.
The one that was there on the Midway Plaisance that was designed by George Washington Gale Ferris.
Yeah.
After the fair closed, a plan was hatched to move it to the north side of the city and to basically open a beer garden around it and operate it as a popular amusement. But
seems fitting for the neighborhood.
yeah, it does.
As we know it today.
Right, and then you know, Lakeview had a strong like German population, a strong Swedish population. There were people who liked to go to beer gardens and they'd enjoy an attraction like the Ferris wheel. But it never like really made a lot of money the way they expected it would, and there was a lot of local opposition. Weirdly enough, one of the people kind of leading the charge against getting the wheel out of the neighborhood was a guy named William Boyce, who helped kind of establish the Boy Scouts of America, which is just like a weird kind of historical quirk. He was like a local publisher. But when the Ferris wheel is removed, it's so they can be sent to St. Louis for the 1904 World's Fair there.
So St. Louis used our leftovers.
They basically used our leftovers, right.
Well, what happened to it after that? How come it's not
Well,
back?
it's really sad what happened to that, because once again, this is the very first Ferris wheel designed by Ferris. It was enormous. It stood 264 feet tall. It had these big, like, mostly steel and iron, and then the cars, though, were wood paneled, and they were like train cars. They could fit up to 60 people.
Oh, wow.
With like, you know, glass panels on all sides. So, you know, people in St. Louis get to enjoy it, and then nobody else seems to have an interest in it when that fair closes, so they decide to blow it up with dynamite, which is what they do. And it's just gone. It just becomes scrap material. That's it.
That's it.
Nothing survives to this day.
You know me, I love fun facts. And one of the fun facts of the Lakeview neighborhood is its borders. One of the particular borders is the southeast corner of Lakeview, as I'm standing in right now. And that happens to be Lakeshore Drive and Diversity Parkway. And as you can see, when you look around here, you have the Diversity driving range, Lincoln Park, the actual park. We'll get to that neighborhood in another video, some artwork. And then of course you have Diversity Harbor. That is one of the crown jewels of Chicago in terms of its harbors. Lakeshore Drive off in the distance. You got a beautiful view of downtown back that way. And of course, on the north end of the Lakeview neighborhood, you have Irving Park. And then when you go west, you hit Ravenswood. That is officially what you know about the borders here in the Lakeview neighborhood. All right, Paul, so I have to ask, what is the dummy system?
As I mentioned, like Lakeview was once its own independent community, right? But people from Chicago still wanted to travel to this near suburb, and they had their own special 3-car train system that ran between just Lakeview and the north side of Chicago, and it was called the Dummy Rail. And not because it was a stupid system, but because it was so quiet. So it had it was powered by a locomotive that was basically silent.
So one of the main streets in Lakeview is Clark Street, and you got everything you want on Clark Street. Of course, you got Wrigley Field, you got restaurants, you got comic shops, you have bars, and then you have the Metro. For over 40 years, it has been a beacon of music right in this neighborhood. Joe Shanahan has curated the Smart Bar and the Metro over the years, and it is one of the true gems of Chicago. So we couldn't forget the Metro, right? There's another spot that we're gonna check out as far as music is concerned, and it's down the street near Belmont. All right, so now you know a little bit about the history of the Lakeview neighborhood. I thought I'd show you the western edge of Lakeview. You're looking at Lincoln Avenue right along Addison. And there's a lot of businesses in this neighborhood that are historic and meaningful to the community. Thought I'd go a little music, and why not show off one of the theaters that's been around since 1912. That is the Vic Theater. And I talked to my friend Jerry Mickelson, who was the owner of the theater and Jam Productions, and he gives us the proper pronunciation or the old school name of the Vic Theater.
Well, the full formal name is the Victoria Theater, yes, but we just call it the Vic.
So I asked Jerry, what is the original purpose of the Vic?
And they built it in 1912 for vaudeville, and that was big back then. But then vaudeville started dying down. The touring shows started playing downtown, not in the neighborhoods, and so they converted this to a movie house. And movies lasted only so long because then, the advent of TV, the Depression, and so by the late 20s, the theater was closed as a theater.
So a lot happened in between the time that they closed the Vic in the 1920s till when Jerry's company took it over in the year 2000. Jerry explains.
It was a business for plaster. It was a plaster business that came in here. Then it was some kind of automotive business that came in after that.
Really?
And then it was open for various ethnic type movies. It was Latin movies for a while, because this was at some point became the Roberto Clemente Theater. They showed X-rated movies, which is usually the signal that the theater is definitely going to close soon, because when you're doing that kind of programming, there's not much else to go. There's no place else to go. So
was this like in the 60s, 70s?
Yep. And then in 1983, the theater was purchased by Walt and Tom Klein, who restored it to a concert venue and opened it up that way. And my company, Jam, began promoting all the shows here in 1987.
All right, so what are some fun facts about the Vic, Jerry?
It was built in 1912 for $300,000, which was a lot of money back then, and they spared no expense. So as you walk through the theater, it's got the original Italian marble floors, it's got the original Italian marble stairs, it's along the sides of the stairs and other parts of the theater. There's original English quarry tile. There's a lot of ornate plaster. Even in this box, you can see some of the original fixtures, chandeliers that are attached to the wall. You can see the beautiful plaster. You can see the plaster behind me.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of original pieces still left in the theater. And when we restored and redid the bathrooms, I found the original tile from the original bathrooms and the original floor patterns, and we matched it. So even the new bathrooms look original because we patterned it after the original washrooms.
How many people can fit inside the space?
So 1,400 general admission and 1,000 reserved when we put seats down on the main floor.
All right, so naturally, when you own your own music venue in the city of Chicago, many bands pass through. So I asked Jerry what some of his favorite were. You gotta listen.
Well, now
that's what the list is?
That is an amazing list.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's too many. Whether it's Lord Nero, Procol Harum, Foreigner, Soundgarden, Kenny Loggins, Crowded House,
Wow.
Jackson Browne, David Byrne, PJ Harvey, Peter Frampton, Marianne Faithfull, Goo Goo Dolls. I mean, it's just, Backstreet Boys.
The Backstreet Boys?
David Bowie played here.
David Bowie.
Wow. Iggy Pop, Dennis Miller, Told the Wet Sprocket. I mean, everybody. Tori Amos, Joe Bonamassa, Train. I mean,
You listed
Sam
off.
Smith.
Oh, wow.
Leon Bridges, Tom Segura, Foster the People. I mean, it's just Mavis Staples, of course, Little Feat, Tom Morello.
So as Jerry and I were talking, it occurred to me to wonder what made him want to buy the Vic in the first place.
Well, we began working for Tom and Walt Klein in 1987, and I purchased it in 2000. And it was a great theater. I mean, look, we're at Belmont and Sheffield. We're right next to the L. It's a beautiful 1912 theater. People love coming here. So what's not to like about making an acquisition for a venue like this?
With owning such a historic spot in Lakeview, I wondered if Jerry is a lifelong Chicagoan, and if so, what neighborhood?
I was West Rogers Park,
Okay.
Devon and Western.
So do you remember coming to this venue before you purchased?
No. It was closed. Well, it really wasn't open for, for me. My theater was the Northtown Theater when I was a kid growing up.
So owning the Vic for a better part of 25 years and working there beyond that, I wondered if there was any notable changes in the neighborhood that he's noticed throughout the years.
Well, that's a good question. We've seen the neighborhood change a lot. And when I say that, you've seen an influx of new construction for residential. Across the street was a parking lot forever, and they built, condos.
Right.
You've got all kinds of new single-family homes that have replaced older buildings. You've got apartment buildings being built. You've got Belmont becoming more active and newer buildings on Belmont for commercial and residential purposes. Sheffield, go up Sheffield between here and Wrigley. I mean, it looks different, and Wrigley has helped this neighborhood of this part of Lakeview tremendously. So it's the commercial and the residential, I'd say, building boom that have really helped. The new L station that was replaced 7, 8, 9 years ago. It's all part of the gentrification and the revitalization of this part of Chicago.
What was this like when you first started promoting shows here?
Wasn't as nice. I mean, it was still the north side, so it was still good, but it wasn't as nice, and it had a more, I can't say laid back, but it had a little different feeling. It just wasn't the same as it is today. And I'm not saying that today is is greater than what it was before.
Right.
By no means. I'm just pointing out some things that have changed.
So Jam has been producing shows at the Vic since 1987. So that's got to be a huge tally. I asked Jerry if he can quantify how many shows he has either been a part of since the beginning of his time there at the Vic Theater.
5,000-6,000 shows we've probably brought here.
That's incredible.
Over the period of time that we started in '87.
And not only that you're bringing a crowd in here, 1,400 people on a sold out show, that's also people participating in the community, you know, going to restaurants, to bars, you know, to support the community. It's been, I think it means a lot to the people of Lakeview, you know, this and other things you've mentioned, but the Vic has been like a staple throughout as long as I've been around.
Yes, look, it's great for the restaurants, it's great for the bars, it's great for the hotels because bands have to stay somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, theaters are typically very good economic development opportunities for the neighborhoods that they are located in.
So if you've never been to the Vic Theater before, I thought it'd be a great opportunity for the owner of the Vic to kind of explain what this place is, what makes it so special, and what you see when you walk in.
You know, when they built these old movie houses, or vaudeville houses I should say, they built them for live. Mm-hmm. So they all sound great, typically. And this is no different than any of the others. It's small, it's intimate, the balcony's close to the stage. Even the last row of the theater is not too far from the stage. So it's a very intimate space no matter where you are. Every seat has a good sight line. The acoustics and the PA system we have in here are really good. A few years back we put new seats in the balcony. Those are really comfy. So everything is, you know, it's a 1912 theater that's been upgraded and modernized for the consumer that wants to have a good time and enjoy themselves.
Now, obviously, the Vic has lots of things that make it a Chicago institution, but what is the true gem of it all?
Well, you know, the second floor lobby where the bar is a pretty it's the largest lobby we have here, and it's a cool place to hang. Mm-hmm. It's got great artwork. It's got tall ceilings, and it's really nice. The back of the main floor is a good place to hang. People like hanging there during a show and hang on the railing just to watch. So people like you know, there's no place they don't like.
Right.
So it's whether you're on the back of the main floor or the front or the side, it's all a great environment and a great place to watch any event, whether it's a comedy show or a concert.
So say if you're a musician, you know, you get a little bit different experience, obviously, because you get to go backstage or dressing rooms. Where are those type of things for the folks that might not ever get a chance to see them, but come to a show and just out of curiosity wonder where they are? Not to like go sneak into them, but just, you know, because it's an old building and a lot of people, a lot of these buildings don't exist. So when they do, it's just fascinating to know.
Well, the backstage area is obviously by the stage, backstage, and it's usually typically below grade, so usually in the basement. But it's not really. It doesn't feel like a basement. Doesn't seem like a basement because it's really decked out pretty well for the artists. And they've got their dressing rooms, their green rooms, their washrooms, and it's a space that we want to make comfortable for them because they're on the road. So they're typically, you know, Chicago today, Cleveland tomorrow, you know, Columbus the next day. So they're not spending a lot of time in hotels. They're coming to the venue and spending their working hours here. So we want to make it as comfy as possible.
I also asked Jerry, what is his favorite part about the Vic Theater? You gotta listen.
I just think the intimacy, the sight lines, and the staff is really good. That always helps. That's always a plus for anybody's experience. And you know, and the location is just terrific. So I mean, it's got all the attributes of what makes it easy for people to want to come here, to want to buy tickets, to want to, you know, frequent this venue. And people come back time and time again. Nobody stays away because there's anything negative that they complain about.
So Jerry owns Jam Productions, also has ownership of a couple other theaters here in the Chicago area. And I asked him, what about these old theaters makes it so special to own and for him to want to continue to invest in them? Listen to what he has to say.
Well, if you study any of the newer theaters they build are basically black boxes. You know, they've got all new bars, all new washrooms, they're fresh, they're clean. But they don't have the vibe, they don't have the atmosphere, they don't have what these old theaters have, which is architecture, which is great art on the inside with the plaster, the intimate setting, the nice balcony that's nobody's, you know, got a head blocking their view.
Yeah.
It's got all the things that most new places don't have. And when they're refreshed and they're renovated, they're better than anything new that can be built. But the difference is you can't even afford to build these anymore.
Yeah.
They're impossible to, you can't come out with, you know, you can't make a good financial investment if you build a new theater and put all this beautiful plaster and beautiful design into it. It just doesn't work. So you'll never see them again. So I like to look at these as saying we're saving history for future generations to come and see.
You know, when you're a concert promoter, there are a lot of things that go into putting on a show on a daily basis, but is there a special part of the day that sticks out more than others?
You know, yeah, it's nice to be able to watch a show, but there's always things going on for everybody that's working it, including myself. So we don't necessarily get a chance to watch the whole show. We'll get a song here, a song there, maybe, if we're lucky. But it's see, I like watching people when they come in. I like to see the audience. I want to see what the demographic is of the show that's that's of the performer that's on stage. So I like to watch the in, we call it, as people are walking in to get into the theater.
So naturally, if you own a music venue, my first question is, what was your favorite band? And I know that's like asking somebody who their favorite kid is, but come on, who was the best band that played through there?
Seeing, you know, I don't have a favorite, but just seeing the acts that I mentioned before, whether it was Laura Nyro or David Bowie or Soundgarden, or Jerry Seinfeld or whomever, I think to me they're all magical. They are able to let us as fans forget about our troubles, forget about our cares, and listen to something that makes us either laugh or happy, listening to great songs. So I get swept up in the whole atmosphere of why we came or why the audience came to see that performer.
Yeah, I imagine just seeing some of these people on their way up, you know, just because of the size, you know, it's not the United Center big, right? So you see a band like Soundgarden on their way up and get big, and then remember that they played at the Vic, where they come back and do special, amazing shows. I saw them here when they reunited right before Lollapalooza's show here in Chicago, which is one of my top 5 moments in music history. I imagine when that happens, it's got to be like a little feather in your cap as far as like, we're doing something here that matters.
You're absolutely right, Tom. Seeing an act on the way up and watching them mature and have those magical moments is really rewarding and very special. But it's also, I also enjoy seeing the large act that plays a small venue and does it for all the right reasons, which is the intimacy and giving back to the fans. So seeing David Bowie here was pretty amazing. Seeing Dua Lipa here was pretty amazing.
Wow.
So you're talking about some pretty huge performers, huge stars, playing a small little venue. That's always special and always magical.
And that is For Love of Chicago in the Lakeview neighborhood, right outside the Vic Theater, originally the Victoria Theater. Thomas.Barnes@cbs.com. If you have a suggestion for a neighborhood I need to hit up, go there, check it out, and go to our YouTube channel and our website and look for Love of Chicago. That is this spot here in Lakeview.